Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. My name is Jennifer Jurek. I am one of the co-directors of Nevenka, and we're just so happy to have you here today. We are celebrating our 45th anniversary of Nevenka this year in 2021. And to celebrate that, we are hoping, fingers crossed, to present 2 live concerts next year in spring of 2022. The first concert will be music from the early days of Nevenka in 1976 up until about the year 2000, and that'll also cover music in our first 2 CDs. And then the second concert we're going to give will be from roughly the year 2000 up until the present, which will cover our 3rd and 4th CDs and other music that we've been singing since the 4th CD was recorded. So we hope that you can join us for that next year. If you're in town, if everything's good, again, fingers crossed, stay well, everyone. And I just wanted to say that while we have been started doing our retrospective, going back over old sheet music, old photos, old notes, we thought, it would be fun to give this presentation and talk about the early days of Nevenka, how we started, who our influences were, where we found our songs. And Trudy and Susie have come up with a really lovely presentation with a lot of fascinating backstories behind the music. So we're going to go ahead and start. I'd like to introduce Trudy Israel, the founding director of Nevenka, who's been here since 1976, and she's going to tell you more.
And it's great to see all these great faces. Nevenka began in 1976. We were all former dancers and singers in the Amman Folk Ensemble, and that was a group out of Los Angeles. We performed music and dance from Eastern Europe and the Middle East. When we were under the direction of a man named Anthony Shea at the beginning, and he taught us to really look at the material that we were doing. He taught everything to us in cultural context, where we didn't just learn steps or just sing a song. We learned the vocal styling that went along with it. We learned the customs, the costumes, how to do the steps. And we learned so much from him that when we did start Nevenka, we had a lot to take with us. Thank you, Tony, if you're there. So we had approximately 8 to 10 hours, 12 hours sometimes a week of rehearsals. And at one point, many of us thought we either have to do this or we have to have a family. And many of us opted for families, and we had to leave the group. And after a while, some of us said, wow, we really missed the singing. We really missed the socializing. So I think Carol Schneider just recently told me, if you're there, Carol, that she said we should have a singing group and we should just do it for fun. So about that time in 1976, 8 of us got together and started to sing. I wasn't there for the first evening, and because of that, I was elected the director, and I hadn't ever directed anything in my entire life. So for me, it was a big learning curve. And we had decided at the beginning, I think we'll just do this for fun. But then we found that it wasn't as fun to just do it for fun if you weren't really going towards a goal, preparing, because we wouldn't practice if we weren't having a show. So we decided pretty early on that we would start to perform. At the very beginning, the vocal styling and the songs that we would find, they were kind of like a study for us. We would study the pronunciation, we would study the styles, where the sound came from in our vocal cords, where the turns were in each song. So we basically just copied the masters, so to speak. And we, in our first CD, we have a lot of songs that were taken from other albums. Later on, when we started to learn from other people, from experts in Georgia or in Bulgaria, like now, we took the liberties to do our own versions of songs. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, but I wanted to just point out here that we're wearing costumes that hid pregnancies. A lot of us had babies at that time, so we chose costumes that we could wear on stage. So my dear friend of 50 years, Susie North, is going to expand on this idea of copying the masters. But first, I would like to introduce her and say that we were chosen to perform with a group called Nama, that was a breakout group from Amman, and David chose the two of us to sing with the band, and it was a dance band. There we are on the left, on your left. On the right, I was 7 months pregnant, I think, for that picture, and so the photographer, Ricardo Salas, said, we have to do something to even this out. So he actually put a pillow underneath Susie's costume there, and to take that picture. So Susie, it's been such a pleasure singing with you all these years, and thank you, David.
Thank you so much, Trudy, for that sweet introduction. The feeling is mutual, is all I can say. And it's really fun to be here today and to do this. I'm so glad we have so many friends who turned up for it. It's really fun. I want to also thank Jennifer and Jessica and Lauren for all their help today. Jennifer did an incredible job on putting together the slideshow and arranging the music, which is out of reach for me. I'm not a techie, she is. So thank you. Yeah, it all started in the Amman show when they needed a song to cover a quick costume change, and David Owens just plucked us out of the chorus. He was a real stickler about words and pronunciation, and when he ran Nama, he was doing research and making connections in the whole folklore world and the academic world that were really amazing connections to make without internet or anything like that. A lot of letters mailed, a lot of phone calls. I want to pick up on what Trudy said about copying the old masters. Fun fact, Trudy has a degree in art history. And when I was reading her master's thesis, I learned that the way you used to learn to paint was you sat in a museum with your canvas and your paints, and you would look at the painting on the wall and paint it until you could make it look like the thing on the wall. And this had very little to do with creativity. It had everything to do with technique. And once you had mastered technique, once you could paint something that looked like the Vermeer or whatever on the wall, you were ready to forge out on your own and to add your own creativity to it, and make it your own, make the art your own. So in a way, that's kind of a metaphor for what we did. We were sticklers back in the day. Anyone who remembers the early days will remember that we joked about the ethnic police. If somebody got out of their lane or something, you had to stick to the material exactly. And I just like to say a couple of words in favor of that early copying that we did. I think it made us really familiar with distinct genres. And I think it made us appreciate the distinctiveness from genre to genre, which was really important back then because we've always done a variety of material from all over the Balkans and beyond. I think being able to differentiate between different types and sort of staying in one lane culturally has been to our advantage in the long run. It also led to develop a sense of taste as to what's idiomatic, what sounds right, and what's not so idiomatic. I like to joke that there's more than one way to get it right with folklore presentation, but there's a million ways to get it wrong. And one of the things that I guess it's sort of the acid test is when we perform in front of an ethnic audience, and they are just blown away, and they're so happy and thrilled, and they really resonate with our presentation of their music. That's really thrilling. It's really a thrill.
It is. And so we learned songs wherever we could, and we gathered albums. And for a year, Susie and I took Bulgarian, Macedonian lessons from Dr. Jane Sugarman, who lived in LA at that time. And we learned a lot. Thank you, Jane. And we went to the early Mendocino camps and learned from the ethnomusicologists who taught there.
After traveling through Eastern Europe, and the music sort of got into our bones a little bit, became a part of us. Then we began to grow and we began creating our own arrangements. It was definitely time, we said, to produce an album. Well, it was a cassette. It didn't look like that. It was a little squatty thing.
Yes.
And we are going to talk about some of the highlights of that first album.
We are. And I was told by Jerry Summers if we could please identify people in the pictures. So we'll try to do that. I saw that in the chat, Jerry. Thank you. So the first song that we're going to talk about is Moma Ima Belolice. In 1970, I spent 8 weeks in Eastern Europe in a VW van, traveling with my husband and friends. And we went to the villages throughout what was then Yugoslavia, now Bosnia, Croatia, Macedonia, and so on. And then we went to Bulgaria. In Sofia at the time, there was a department store that had, it may still be there for all I know, but they had the top floor had music, and they had these little booths you could go into and take an LP and put it on the turntable and listen to the album and see if you wanted to buy it. So I think we walked out of there with probably a dozen albums, and one of them was the one that I got Moma Ima Belolice off of. It was from the Sofia Ensemble. And we brought it home, but we didn't have the words, so we didn't have the meaning. So I asked Dick Crum, who was a fabulous linguist and a dance teacher, who was one of the first people actually to teach line dances in the United States. We asked him if he would give us the words, and he did. And Susie, you can explain the next part of it.
So this is some of the music that we got him to transliterate for us so that we could read it and sing it. And then the last word of the song is Sedenkyu, which is a work bee. And Dick was just very witty and silly, really silly and so funny. And he wrote at the bottom, he says, Sedenkyu, and she says, thank you. So that was Dick.
That was Dick.
Very
yeah. So this song, it's very passionate. It's about a young man who says to his young sweetheart, "Oh, girl with the beautiful face, you have fired me up. You are driving me crazy. I'm going to go to the Sedenka, the working bee, and I'm going to just take you away with me." We love this song so much that we still do it in our programs from time to time. So, Moma Ima Belolice.
Mama ima belolice, mama ima crni oči. Pirale bir salem, 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 ta salem, gerdi do gera, do gerdi, gerdi, gera, do ger. Mama ima biti veždi, mama ima tanka snaga. Pirale bir salem, 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 ta salem, gerdi do gera, do gerdi, gerdi, gera, do ger. Lele mome, Malka mome, izgori me, podludi me. Pirale bir salem, 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 ta salem, gerdi do gera, do gerdi, gerdi, gera, do ger. To večera će ti dojdem da te tragnem od Sedenkju. Pirale bir salem, 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 ta salem, gerdi do gera, do gerdi, gerdi, gera, do ger.
Next, we're going to do a song, a Slavonsko Kolo. In 1967, the Lado Croatian National Ensemble came to perform in Los Angeles. And we saw them, I think it was the Greek Theater. If any of you out there, Michael, maybe you know for sure. And then we performed for them at a church, a Croatian church in LA. And this was my very first performance with Aman. At the end of our show, the Ladarice, the women who were the singers, the special singers in Lado, got onto the stage and sang two Croatian songs. And I was just bowled over. It was just a moving moment for me. And one of the women that was there was Nena Shokcic, on the left. And she's dancing with David Shockett because that week she came to some of the Aman rehearsals and showed us some of the steps from some of the song, from some of the dances that we had seen Lado do. So Lado had a huge, huge impact on Aman and on Nevenka later. Years later, Nena and Misha, her husband, and their daughter Ida moved to the United States. So our early songs were focused more on Croatia than other places. Plus, we had a really, really good tamburica orchestra that played with us, and we were really fortunate to have them. Nena gave us the words to so many songs and worked on styling with us and told us the traditions. The next one we're doing is, one other thing. The name Nevenka comes from Nena. Nena is short for Nevenka, and it's a common name in the Balkans. We put the accent in Croatia on the first syllable. In Bulgaria, it's on the second syllable. So we do it both ways. Slavonsko kolos, or Slavonian kolos, they were dances done in the villages in the circle. And very often people would shout out some of the village news, or, so-and-so's gotten engaged. In this song, one of the lines is, I dance like a bird, I shake all around, and I would like to kiss somebody, but my mother won't let me. I hope you enjoy Carol Akawie singing the lead lines in this. I drafted her for this because her voice was so perfect for a Slavonian village style. So Slavonsko kolo.
And in case you don't know what tamburica music is, you sort of imagine a Croatian or Serbian bluegrass. It's like a string band that plays ballads as well as dance tunes. And if you had a bad boy vibe, you've pretty much got it. The Bečari were the village musicians. They played tamburica music. And they weren't outlaws. They weren't that bad. They were sort of like the guys that all the girls swooned over, but the moms and dads didn't want them to marry.
I just have to interject. You can't not smile when you're listening to Tamburitsa music. It's just so fun.
True. Are you hear that, Chris Yasetta? You're out there, I know. Chris was so instrumental in so many of our arrangements. We're going to talk about that later, though. So the next song is Minya Matushka. It's a Russian song, and our interest in Russian music was influenced by Pearl Rottenberg Taylor's her passion and her expertise in that area. Pearl had sung with Michael Janice and studied with him. He was one of the first people to bring Russian folk music to Los Angeles. He was an excellent singer, and so was Pearl for that matter. So this is Minya Matushka, and Susie North is featured in this song, along with Anne Brown and Alison Schneider.
На зорке разбудила, жать колхозную пшеницу снарядила. Ой, да ух, тут я стала на работу торопиться. Ой, да ух, перед зеркалом румянится, белится. Час я белую кофту одевала, кисеёю бахромою обшивала. Ой, да ух, винтуалою я бегала, искала. Ой, да ух, туда, видать, меня матушка позвала. Ботиночки одела, завязала, а мне матушка раздеться приказала. Ой, да ух, ах, осталось только в жамне нарядиться. Ой, да ух, посмотри-ка, дочка, солнышко садится. Я на матушку взглянула, удивилась, не пойму, на что она так рассердилась. Ой, да ух, ты сиди, сиди-ка, дочка, наряжайся. Ой, да ух, а на что я рассердилась,
I would like to read you the words to that song because they are hilarious. I'm going to read it straight from the album. It says, it's a young woman, and she's supposed to go out to work on the fields. And it says, it says, Mother woke me up at dawn to reap the wheat. I began to hurry to get ready for work. In front of my mirror, I put on my makeup. It took me 1 hour to fix my white blouse. I looked and looked for my red ribbon, and at that time, Mom called me for lunch. I ate and drank some tea. Then I started to get ready for work. I decided to change my blouse for a blue one. I did not like the blue and tried yet another one. I put on my shoes, tied them, but then my mother ordered me to undress. All I needed to be ready was my shawl. Look, daughter, the sun is already going down.
I love those words. Anybody who's ever raised a teenage girl can relate 100%.
So
I'm going
go ahead,
to
Susie.
talk a little bit about a Chop song called Dva konia vode. It was researched by Jody Levinson, who now performs under the name of Eva Moon, and she does this duet with Amy Krivis. In the song,
Can I interject that, Jerry? That's Eva Moon, second from the right, and that's Amy Krivis on the right.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you. And two women are arguing about how to do farm chores involving moving a horse. And they're arguing back and forth. No, not that way, this way. No, not the kawanaka, back, blah, 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 blah. And there's a bunch of versions of this song. And it's a popular song as a performance piece because it's kind of an audience pleaser because it's funny and it's got the chitter chattering of the two women bickering. It's kind of funny. When you have this kind of music with a drone under a melody, it often produces these seconds, two notes that are very close together, a little closer than we're used to hearing in, say, Western classical music. And the way those sounds sound to me is the way bright colors next to each other look to my eyes. For example, if you saw a really beautiful Central American textile, beautiful weavings, and you'll see bright orange, hot pink, red, right next to each other. And they kind of vibrate. The colors actually vibrate. And when I hear seconds, when I hear the musical, those crunchy notes together, they sizzle in the same way. They do to my ears what those bright colors do to my eyes.
Два коня воде, мила мама, два коня водите така, не така, онака. Юзда се влаче, мила мама, юзда се влачете така, не така, онака. Трева завлаче, мила мама, трева завлачете така, не така, онака. Юбаво не да, мила мама, юбава не да таква, не таква, онаква. Равна йо снага, мила мама, равна снага те таква, не таква, онаква. Бело йо лице, мила мамо, бело йо. Лице, мила мамо.
We're going to talk about a song called Hoditi Chekmeni. Oh, first of all, do you want to? Yeah, we're going to talk about a song called Hoditi Chekmeni and Petje Kumi. Susie Burke, who's on the left here, is the soloist on this medley. She told us that she remembers evenings spent at the home of Nena and Misha Chocic. Nena was a spectacular cook, and so all the guests would flood into the kitchen to learn the secrets. And then Susie would hang out with Misha in the living room, and he would play from his vast collection of recordings. And he really liked her voice a lot and wanted to find two songs that she could do back to back that would really show off her voice. And this was the result. She would perform them whenever we were accompanied by the Tom Breitz Orchestra in our shows. The medley was arranged by Rick Schneider, and we were able to get the meaning of the two songs from John Motovich, a friend of Susie's, who, thank you, John, if you're here today. In brief, the first song, a little bird asks a girl why she's crying, and the girl confides in the bird, but she says, but don't tell my sweetheart that I was crying. It's kind of sad. And then the happy song that follows is a hilarious song about five sisters basically drinking each other under the table.
Check me.
Casina skoluru, že inamu, že jako tu, že su tebi ani ješala, kad sam skoro gladovала. Tata si pak premizvjava, kak ti čerku namuštala, il bi tebi dečka zela, il bi njemu čerku dala. Il bi sebi dečka zela, il bi njemu čerku dala.
There was a question in the chat about the costumes. If I'm not mistaken, this photo is not a Nevenka photo. I'm guessing it's from
Correct.
Amman.
It's from the Amman days,
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Posavina costume, it's called. And yeah.
Our costumes were always just some sort of approximation that would suggest Balkan, like the ones that are sort of look like a maternity dress, because that's what we needed then. In the late 70s and early 80s, our costume was kind of inspired by the Russian sarafan, that long, very triangular dress. And we've had a variety of costumes over the ages, but they merely suggest something. They're not this or that culture.
And then when Justine came into the group, she said, we should just wear all black and Nevenka colors, the color of marigolds. And that's what Nevenka is. It's like the name Rose would be from a flower. So Nevenka is from the marigold flower. I think I may have said that already, though. I want to talk a little bit about, before we talk about Dere Geliyor Dere, about my approach as a director over the years. And Jennifer and I now, we co-direct, and it's just been fabulous. I've always thought that everybody has something to offer vocally. Many choirs have 2 or 3 sopranos that they always call upon. And my theory is that everybody has a different voice, and you can find that sweet place for their voice. And I try to do that over the years. I think it's really good for morale. It's really good for camaraderie. And we are there are no divas in our group, and we always help each other. And so you'll hear as you go through, there are different people singing very different types of styles. And many of the women in the group have lines and duets. So I am going to Dere Geliyor Dere. This is a Turkish song. I was in France visiting my dear friends, Michelle and Noé Green-Levasseur. That is Michelle on the lower right. And she was I'm sorry, Jananet, I saw that, sorry. She was a former Amman person, and she moved to France and started Janam Balkan Ensemble many years ago. And I was there visiting, and I heard them sing this song, and I asked Michelle if she would teach it to me. She had learned it from Françoise Demir, who was in the group. And when Michelle came to the United States, she taught us this song. So thank you, Françoise. Thank you, Michelle. And you'll hear Adrienne Malka sing the solos in this. And I think her voice was just right for it. So Dere Geliyor Dere. Oh, should I say what this is about? Yes, I should. The song is from the point of view of a young woman who is separated from her sweetheart. She's frustrated with the passage of time, the rivers overflowing and spreading sand. Oh, river, take me to my sweetheart, and when will we be married?
Dere geliyor dere, ya le le, ya le le. zaman zaman bizim düğün ne zaman yaleleli. Amanın aman aman zamanın zaman zaman bizim düğün ne zaman yaleleli.
After some time spent immersed in Balkan singing, we had grown in confidence and we were starting to tinker a little bit and make the music our own, and to interpret them as we saw fit. We wanted to put our stamp on the music. I was madly in love with three little songs on the album Narodne pjesme I plesovi iz Baranje. And that album was a collaboration between a tamburica orchestra from the Baranja region of what was then Yugoslavia and the Ladarice. Trudy talked about the choir that was part of Lado. So they worked together on this album, and it wouldn't have made sense to perform all three songs because they were actually very similar in flavor, but I had no favorite. I was crazy about all three. So I came up with the idea of putting them together into a medley. And the heavy lifting was done by Chris Yasetta, who arranged the song. Susie Curtis leads in the first song and Trudy leads in the second two.
Is
Trudy, will you say something about the Elisa Clevin art?
I was just about to say that. Actually, you beat me to it, Dawn Green. I saw your note, Barbara. Carol Schneider was one of the founding members of Nevenka. In fact, she told me recently she came up with the idea. Carol, thank you. And her sister, Elisa, who is a quite well-known children's book illustrator and writer, did our borders for us on our posters and our flyers. And we took these images and put them on our albums, our first few albums. So thank you, Carol. Thank you, Elisa. The next song that we're going to do is Croatian. It's actually Dalmatian, the coast of what was Yugoslavia. It's now Dalmatia. I was at a festival in Toronto many years ago, and they had, it was international, I think it was called the Caravan Festival in Toronto. And I was walking around and saw this booth where they had LPs and you could play them on their little record players there. So I took this album out, Zadranke, and listened to the first cut on it, and it was Bashkaj Malo Selo. And I said, I'll take the album. And most of the other pieces on this album are very typically Dalmatian styling with almost like a barbershop quartet type harmonies in it. Bashkaj Malo Selo, we made it faster than, we took liberties and made it much faster than Zadranke had done it, because it's a happy song. It's about a village in the springtime where the tomatoes are all blooming, everyone is happy. And we thought that this should be a more punchy song. And it's one of the songs that we've also kept in our repertoire all these years because we love it so much. The solos feature Susie North and Sue Komoorian. Bashkaj Malo Selo.
Bashkaj malo selo, Bashkaj malo selo, alije veselo. Oj na na ni nena, oj na ni nena, traj na ni nena, oj na ni nena, alije veselo. Najveće veselo, najveće veselo, najveće veselo kada je zeleno. Oj na ni nena, oj na ni nena, traj na ni nena, oj na ni nena, kada je zeleno. I onda se kupuju, i onda se kupuju, i onda se kupuju svileni facoli. Oj na ni nena, oj na ni nena, traj na ni nena, oj na ni nena, svileni facoli. Kad su pomedori, kad su pomedori, kad su pomedori, podsjeti resogi. Oj na ni nena, oj na ni nena, traj na ni nena, oj na ni nena, podsjeti resogi.
So the next song is on an album that was given to me by my friend Stuart Menon, and it's called Armenians, Jews, Turks, and Gypsies. It's an old album. And the song that I was really, really drawn to was one that had been recorded by a famous Greek singer named Rita Abatsi in 1923. And what I liked about it is that it was kind of a Sephardic song because it talks about a blonde Jewish girl. That's the title, Santhia Vreopula. And it has Sephardic Ladino words in it. It has some Turkish words, and it's mainly sung in Greek. The meaning of it is I've traveled all around the world. I've seen many women, but you with your whimsical charms, you blonde Jewish girl, you have stolen my heart. And I wanted to say that when I recorded this song, everyone else had gone home. We had recorded 3 or 4 songs that night, and it was just me and the 3 musicians. And I did one take of it, and it was okay. It wasn't so great, and I was pretty nervous. And I think it was Stuart Brotman, one of the musicians, who said, "Why don't you take a few sips of your Metaxa, your Greek brandy, before you do it next time?" And I did it, and I did it on the second take. I've dedicated this song in concert to my daughter when she was 10. She was my little blonde Jewish girl. And today I want to dedicate it to my little blonde Jewish granddaughter, Santi Evreopula.
Trudy, you sing that with such keffy.
Oh, thank you.
That's the word I learned from you.
We
It
had
means
fabulous
a lot of
musicians. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Stuart Brotman, John Zaretsky, and Jim Knight. Wow, really incredible.
But the joy you bring to it and the passion is so much you in the way you direct, the way you cook, the way you entertain, everything has that spirit.
Thank you, Susie, my buddy. Thank you. So this song, Vozlerechki, is a song from one of the albums that I had, and it's a compilation of of different groups from Russia. This was from the Siberian Ensemble. So Vozlidechki was a song that I found on this album, and you'll hear that it has just incredible accordion parts in it, the instrumentation, and our dear friend Jerry Milstein, who is a fabulous keyboardist, and he played the accordion for this piece. So we had our first rehearsal. We had just worked up this whole song, ready to go for our show, and Jerry starts to play, and it's in a totally different key than we had planned. I felt so guilty. I felt like I had just not told him the right key. And I said, Jerry, oh no, we don't do it in that key. We do it in this key. And he said, oh, no problem. And right then and there, he just transposed the whole thing and just did it perfectly. And we were just knocked over by that. So this is Vozlidechki, and it's about it's about a rat, this little bush whose berries fall into the river, and the rapid river goes out to the sea, and it takes these it blossoms in faraway countries. So perhaps a little bit of a nationalistic symbolism here. I'm not sure, but that's Vozlidechki.
Возле речки, возле быстрый куст выросла, под осиной золотистой он расцветал, расцветал, куст калины, ой да расцветал, под осиной золотистой расцветал, расцветал, белым цветом, ой да расцветал, куст калины, белым цветом расцветал. Разлилось море без края флота села, и вода его большая куст залила, залила куст калины, ой да залила, куст калины белоснежной залила, залила куст калины, ой да залила, куст калины белоснежной залила. Это море молодое, а не Байкал, его в пятой пятилетке народ создал. Наби, это море, ой да наби, в пятилетку наби народ создал. Наби, это море, ой да наби, в пятилетку наби народ создал. Ветер по морю гуляет, бьет волной, а над морем расцветает сад молодой. Молодой, соколиный, ой да молодой, расцветает соколиный молодой. Молодой, соколиный, ой да молодой, расцветает соколиный молодой. Молодой, соколиный, ой да молодой, расцветает соколиный молодой.
I was supposed to say that the intros were Pearl Taylor and also Alison Nickerson. And those wonderful descants were by Susie Curtis. And there was one following descant that was by Adrienne Malka. So thank you, gals.
We're going to talk about Choreshko. I learned this song from Lauren Brody at Mendocino Folk Camp. Lauren was already a legend to me. When I first joined Amman, she had been out of the group for a couple of years, so we were sort of ships passing in the night, but it was really a joy to work with her at camp. Trudy, you know a little bit more about Lauren than I do. You worked with her in Amman, yes?
Yes, she's a good dancer. She's a fabulous musician, and has taught at the Mendocino camps and I think probably she lives in New York now, so probably the Buffalo Gap camps, and she's lived in Bulgaria, and we learned a lot from her. Thank you, Lauren.
This is a sad song that's part of a folklore tradition in Bulgaria. In this type of song, something very sad has happened that caused the plants to all wither and die. It could be two lovers who parted under a tree. They said, we can't marry. And when they left, the tree lost all of its leaves, or maybe a contingent of war prisoners were walked through a forest by the enemy who had won the war. And when that happened, the entire forest faded. So it's really a very poignant image. And in this song, it's a cherry tree, and someone is asking the cherry tree, why is it bare? Was it the wind? Was it the rain? It's a very long song. It has many, many, many verses. And presenting a song like that is always a challenge because you want to preserve its integrity. But as performers, we have to be aware of people's, attention spans, especially because most of our audiences don't speak the languages that we're singing in. So we solved the problem here by ending after 3 verses, because the 3 first verses kind of set up the song. Why have you faded? What is wrong? Was it the wind? Was it the rain? So the song is quite truncated.
Susie North sounds fabulous. Sorry, Susie, this is one of my favorite songs on the album.
Thank you.
That was very moving.
Thank you. I cannot think about that song without thinking of the 10 freeway, because I used to sing it so much on my way to and from work. It's just fused in my brain. So here's to the 10 freeway.
So our last song is Pjesme Udovice, and I want to take a moment to talk about the tamburica, because our version of this song was arranged by Chris Yasetta, and we were so fortunate to have him and Rick Schneider and Barbara Weissman and Peter Israel, I know him, and John Gresham, and I know I'm going to leave people out, and help me here, Susie, Andy King, and we were so lucky to have such a fabulous tamburica. Mike Gordon, yes, thank you, Shira. Thank you so much. And Mike Gordon is the person who designed our Nevenka logo for us. And Dan Ratkovich. So, Pjesme Udovice is a song that I heard on the Ladarice album. I had a tape that was given to me by Nena and Misha Shokcic, and I asked her if she could teach us this song. And she very graciously did so. And she worked really hard with us to get it right. It was put to words by, it's a poem that was put to words by Bojo Potocznik, and he was one of the main arrangers for the Lotto Ensemble. And our arrangement, like I mentioned, was done by Chris Yasetta. It's about a woman who is a widow, a young widow, and she's wearing black, and she's tired of it, and she wants to get on with her life. She wants to celebrate life again. And she says, I need love just like a brick needs a wall, or a cake needs sugar. If I sin, I'll just light a bunch of candles. And so that's what that's about. And Susie is going to tell you a little more about it.
Just to set the context, widowhood was a kind of a fixed stage of life in a Balkan village traditionally. When your husband died, you would put on black and you would live in perpetual mourning until your own death. So this song is kind of straining against tradition. It's a little transgressive. And the other thing about the song is it's not truly a folk song because it has a known author. The poem was written by one person as opposed to folk music that has umpteen authors in the misty past. This has an author and it was put to music. And as such, it's a little more artistic and produced than a lot of folk music. It has two sections. It alternates slow and fast. The slow part is minor, and she's talking about how sad her present state is, and then it goes into a faster, perkier, major section where she's thinking about how great life could be if she were free. So she's going back and forth between lamenting and wishing for a brighter future. I think we should dedicate this song to all of our friends who've lost their husbands.
Well, so I want to thank everyone for coming and joining us today. I want to thank the Nevenka alums who helped us down this 45-year journey and contributed so much. Jennifer, Lauren, our administrator, and Jennifer, our co-director, thank you for doing all of the graphics and the technical stuff. And I know Jessica's there somewhere too, helping out. So thank you, everybody. And if you have any more questions in the chat, we'll be happy to answer them. And I'm going to turn you over to Susie's going to say something, and then Jennifer's going to say something. I think Susie's going to say something, right?
Sometime after this first album was produced came the world music movement. Who knew? And that, was very different because it really valued collaboration between genres and a fusion of styles. And of course, I joked earlier about the ethnic police, and some of you remember worrying about the ethnic police. And now it was suddenly as though the ethnic police had suddenly been defunded. And, it was very freeing. With this new influence, we felt even more at liberty to embellish, to change things up, to borrow and combine and recombine, while still honoring the style and the feeling of the songs. So I think this becomes increasingly evident in our subsequent albums, and we would like to talk with you about those in the not too distant future.
I just also wanted to add, in addition to thank you everyone for being here. You were such a fun audience, even though, we're not in person. We really miss seeing you in person, but we like seeing you in the chat and seeing your pictures and seeing you singing along to the songs. And it's just lovely. So we are putting together, we're kind of defying technology, and we have put together a live online concert that we're going to be presenting Saturday, March 20th. So please mark your calendars. It's on the website now, but registration will open soon. Obviously, we can't sing as an ensemble online together. So we've put together a show that's a whole bunch of solo performances by the different Nevenka members. We're calling it And Now for Something Completely Different, because to be honest, there's hardly any Balkan music in it. We have a wide range of genres. It's going to be just a really fun, casual, eclectic afternoon of performances. So we hope you'll join us for that. And I also wanted to say at this point, if any of you have additional questions that you want to put in chat, or if you want to go ahead, you can unmute yourselves and ask us questions. And thank you so much.
Trudy, if I can speak up.
Sure.
Michael Alexander here. I just wanted to, and I sent you a personal message, but I want to give everybody a sense that I'm giving a toast to your daughter and to my daughter, because I think the fact that you and Shelley were pregnant was one of the motivating forces to bring Nevenka together. And I know that one of the first 2 or 3 rehearsals was in my living room, and I was blessed to get to listen to all of you. Not just once, but I think a number of times.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah.
That reminds me, I don't know why that reminds me, but it does, that Trudy mentioned that Leslie Yeseta sings with us, and her dad, of course, is Chris Yeseta, who we have played music with forever and ever, and he's featured on a couple of numbers today. But we have also another second generation member of our group, which is Shira O'Keefe, daughter of Barbara Weissman, who was one of the founding members of Nevenka.
Yes, yes. And I think I was supposed to mention Leslie, but I think I got carried away. But Leslie's Chris Yeseta's daughter, we love her. We love her talent. She's a great musician, a great singer. And it's so much fun to have the second generation, she and Shira. And Justine is Michelle Green's cousin, who is the second generation. So, okay, well, I think that might be it. Any other questions? And we will sign off otherwise. Hi, Carol Snyder.
I guess I have one comment. Hi, it's Kathy.
Hi.
I guess after we moved from Michael's front room, we moved to your sister Bonnie's front room and had Nevenka rehearsals there, remember?
I do remember that
Yeah, and
quite well.
I saw Bonnie's picture up here and reminded me. So thank you, Bonnie. Thank all of you. This was just absolutely brilliant and something we so badly needed this afternoon. Thank you all.
Thank you, Kathy.
We couldn't
Thank
have done it
you.
without all you.
Yes, that's true. We were the
I just
you
like to
guys were the
say thank
foundations.
you. Thank you so much. This was such a great presentation. I enjoyed it a lot.
Thanks, Chris. Thank
You're welcome.
you. Thank you for your great contributions to our group. We
You mean
really
my
appreciate
kid?
your kid for sure.
For starters.
And the music, all the music.
Right.
And the second album.
It was my pleasure,
The
really.
second album, when you sing Do Na Van, our second album, that was my, that for me was just, I didn't think you were ever going to say yes to that when I asked you, but when you did, I was so excited. And it's one of my favorite songs on all of our albums.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so I guess any other comments from anybody?
Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll be in touch. Have a wonderful
Yes.
rest of your day or night,
Yes.
wherever you are.
Yay.
Good to see you all.
Yes, good to see you too.